Meeting to order. Again, I'd like to call the meeting to order. First item is to open bids for the IEC project area.
Mr. Jordan, before we do that, could we just take a roll call? We have one member appearing virtually. Could we just do that, please?
Sure, absolutely. Sorry.
Mr. Lane,
Here.
Mr. Goldman,
Here.
Mr. Jordan,
Here.
Mr. Horvath,
Here.
and Mr. File.
He'll need to appear on camera, won't he, Phil?
Mr. File, are you online? If so, could you unmute and go to video? Mr. File, for the remainder of the meeting, we'll need you on video and unmuted when you speak. For now, Mr. President, we'll just show Mr. File present. We could move on with the meeting, and for votes, they'll need to be on video and unmuted.
All right, thank you. Now it's time to open bids.
That's correct. We will turn the bid opening over to Andy Lumberis with DLZ.
Okay.
Good morning, Andy Lumberis with DLZ. These are the bids for the bid package one for the procurement of water and wastewater infrastructure for the IEC development area work. So we have three different divisions for the contracts. Division A is for piping, Division B is for emergency generators, and Division C is for a water tank. So we'll go ahead and open the bids right now. We do have 4 total bids that were received for all the projects. The first one I'll open is from McGuire water tank. So they acknowledge that they received the 2 addendums that were issued. They are bidding on only Division C, which is the water storage tank. And their total bid is $1.5 million, $1,560,000.00. So that's McGuire Iron. There were 2 items in those bids that can be awarded separately. It appears that they have provided the other additional information that was requested, but that will be reviewed later. The next bid is from Pittsburgh Tank and Tower Group. Extra large envelope. They have also acknowledged the 2 addendums that were issued. They are also bidding on Division C for the water storage tank. Their total bid is $987,500. So that's $987,500, and that's for Pittsburgh tank. The next bid is from Core and Main. They have acknowledged that they received both addendums. They are bidding on Division A, which is piping and fittings. In Division A, there are 30 different bid items that can be awarded. The total amount of those bid items from Core and Main is $1,542,908.65. That's $1,542,908.65. The last bid is from Ferguson Waterworks. They acknowledge that they received both addendums. They are bidding for Division A piping and fittings. And their total bid is $1,402,214.67. That's $1,402,000. I'm sorry, $1,402,214.67. Those are all the bids that we have received. We did not receive any bids for Division C. I'm sorry, Division B, which is the emergency generators.
So a couple of things real quick. By way of general explanation, there were three categories here, A, B, and C. A is to extend pipe. Ultimately, the project will be to extend pipe from Larison Boulevard into the GM site. So that's what the pipe and fittings are. We have to have that work done by June of this next year. And so there'll be a request to advertise for the actual installation of those pipes and fittings at our next meeting. We'll ask for notice to award or to advertise for that project. Section B were generators. So this is emergency generators for the water treatment plant as well as for some lift station work. And so we're going to have to go back out and look at those because we received no bids for those. And then C is for a water storage tank. The water storage tank is for the water treatment plant adjacent to the St. Joseph Energy Center. As part of the improvements that will be made there, we'll need to put in another water storage tank on site. There's already an existing one. This will be a second one on site. Because of long lead time to procure these items. That's why we've gone with this early procurement for those items. At this point in time, there are no further bids. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is there been anybody in the room that has a bid that has not been yet received and opened? Seeing none, we'd ask that you refer these bids to the project team for review, and then we would call, after review, assuming that, the bids are in compliance, we'd come back to you at your next meeting to award. We will also be awarding this through the Board of Commissioners at their, commissioners meeting on the 19th also. So thank you very much and I appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to receive the bids?
So moved.
Second. Any
We have a mo-
discussion? No?
Motion in a second, Mr. Lane,
Aye.
Mr. Goble,
Aye.
Mr. Horvath,
Aye.
Mr. File. Mr. File, if you could unmute, please.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. File, and Mr. Jordan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
We will approve the minutes for our last meeting at our meeting next Tuesday.
Yes, we'll have a series of minutes for the next meeting, so.
So
All right.
economic development areas, Frank.
So as way of a financial update, in your packets today, you will see a pivot table that shows a summary of expenditures by vendor, by fund, so you can see how the breakdown is for each vendor and out of each redevelopment TIF area. And then the budget report, location budget as of 12th, that shows how much is appropriated and how much is encumbered in each account for all of our funds. And also included in your packet is a list of all of our open POs as well as the transactions for the last month with all of the contracts that have been approved. You can see that they have been locked up in these POs and the balances that are remaining in them. And I am happy to answer any questions on any of these reports.
Thank you, Mr. Potteet.
The next item in your packet is the 2024 calendar. I would note that because we know that we have to have a extra meeting in January, we have added January 16th as a meeting on the calendar. Generally, we stick to one meeting a month. That was the practice, and we appreciate it when we have two meetings a month. We appreciate your service. So what we'd like you to do, if these dates work, and I would note that there are no holiday conflicts, no other conflicts. We just ask for a motion and a second to approve the 2014 calendar, please.
Is there a motion to approve the calendar as presented?
Motion to
approve.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Lane, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Goble,
Aye.
Mr. Horvath,
Aye.
Mr. File,
Aye.
and Mr. Jordan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I'm sorry, the next item in your packet is the professional service agreement with Sender and Dalton. At this time of year, we always do professional service contracts with our vendors and we do the yearly work with that. So in your packet is the proposal. This is a hourly rate proposal. We've worked with Sender and Dalton for a number of years and would like to continue that work. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Roughly how much do we spend annually with them? Because there's no not to exceed, so I just wanted.
No, well. Senator Dalton. Last year. 40,937.27 to date.
I would say we're getting our money's worth out of
Yes,
that,
I
so
would
with that
agree.
agreement, so.
So is there a motion to approve the financial services agreement with Sender and Dalton?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion, questions?
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Lane,
Aye.
Mr. Goble,
Aye.
Mr. Horvath,
Aye.
Mr. File,
Aye.
Mr. Jordan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
The next item in your packet is the grant services agreement. This is with TAI Ginsburg, again, another firm that we've done work with for a number of years. This is a not to exceed amount of 65,000. The TAI Ginsburg team has helped us as we've navigated grants. Last year, we applied for a raise grant. We were unsuccessful. That was for a project at Ash Road and Lincoln Way for an overpass. There are several grants that are going to come out after the first of the year that their services will be very invaluable for as we look to move forward. So we'd ask for your approval of their contract, please.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Second,
Second.
any discussion or questions? Hearing none.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Goble?
Aye.
Mr. Horvath?
Aye.
Mr. File?
Aye.
Mr. Jordan?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item is resolution 2023-21. This will authorize the St. Joe County Redevelopment Commission to appropriate funds and purchase 502 East Michigan Street in New Carlisle. 502 East Michigan Street is a 0.21 acre vacant lot that is adjacent to the 2.77 acre trailer park that was purchased by the St. Joe County Board of Commissioners in February of 2020. The cost to purchase this vacant lot is $21,000. Staff request approval of resolution 2023-21. Happy to answer any questions. We anticipate combining this with what we've already previously purchased to expand the available development site.
Since it's vacant, is there a reason that we're paying a $6,000 premium over the appraised value? I'm just asking.
I would note there's a huge discrepancy between the current assessed value of the property and the appraisal value. So the current assessed value is up in the 70,000 range. And so there, we think it's a combination of values just being offset in that area. So
That's fine. All right, thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Jordan, if I
Yes.
could make one comment on that, the redevelopment commission is allowed by statute and Indiana law to pay above the appraised value, so that's why it's being done in this case.
Thank you.
And a separate resolution would be done to improve that.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to approve resolution 2023-21?
So moved.
Second. Second.
Is there any discussion or questions?
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Goble?
Aye.
Mr. Horvath?
Aye.
Mr. File?
Aye.
And Mr. Jordan?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next up is resolution 2023-2022. What I do is turn this over to Phil Facenda at this time for this presentation.
Members of the commission, Phil Facenda, 201 South Main Street, South Bend. As you'll recall from your meeting last month, this is in which you gave preliminary approval to a lease and a lease financing that would be undertaken between the redevelopment authority, St. Joseph County Redevelopment Authority, and the Redevelopment Commission, under which the Redevelopment Commission would pay lease rental to the Redevelopment Authority. The Redevelopment Authority would in turn issue bonds and pay debt service with those lease rentals. So the lease structure has been previously explained and authorized by this body. In the interim, under state law, we're required to provide public notice, which has been provided, and counsel for the Redevelopment Commission has seen those public notices and returned to this body for final approval on the lease. And then, as was mentioned in our prior meeting this morning at the Redevelopment Authority, the county council will also entertain the approval of the lease financing this evening. So just again, parameters on the bonds and the lease rental. The bonds are in an amount not to exceed $50 million. The final maturity of those bonds would be not later than February 1, 2043. The annual lease payment would be in an amount not to exceed $5 million. And the maximum interest rate on the bonds would be 7.5%. Again, hoping to do better than that when we go to market in a couple months. On the lease rentals, the county, the Redevelopment Commission, I think we stated this last month, it is anticipated that the lease rentals will be paid from either TIF that is either existing or will be generated from the projects, and or payments from General Motors under the development agreement that is entered into with the county. The financial advisor, the municipal advisor for the county, Senator Dalton, has estimated that coverage, that is the available revenues, TIF revenues and payments from GM over the debt service, the anticipated debt service at 150% coverage, which is very adequate for reasonable expectation that you will not have to levy any tax to cover debt service. In addition, an additional layer of protection against levying a property tax is that the county council has made available local income tax revenues or lit revenues, which far exceed the amount of TIF or payments from the developer, such that there's an additional layer of protection against a property tax levy. Why have a property tax backup with all this coverage? And the answer is because it will save the county a tremendous amount of money in interest rate cost, because the market sees that as the ultimate security, and so that will allow the county to get a much better interest rate on the bonds. One other point I wanted to make: this is a lease financing. And so the lease is the mechanism under which debt service is paid. This is not a first mortgage bond. A first mortgage bond would have as security some property. The leased property in this case, as you know from our prior meetings, the leased property is roads of the county that are being transferred to the redevelopment authority. Those roads are not security for these bonds. So I just want to make that point and make it clear. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So just to kind of play this out, play kind of devil's advocate, in that I think at the end of the day, people want to avoid tax increases. So if the only way if I understand this correctly, the only way that we would see inability to pay through the GM, for example, is if they were no longer operating out there. But even if that happened, there's backup within that agreement and default penalties for them that would cover the cost of this.
Right. So they'd be in default of their contract. So there'd be a claim by the county under their contract. If they stop operations, it doesn't end their requirement to pay. Okay. So there's still the requirement to pay over a 10-year period for them. There is property taxes are still going to be owing from anything that gets developed out there and things that are already developed out there. So property taxes from property in the IEC that are currently paying are currently being collected as TIF revenues. These additional improvements that will be made by GM and perhaps others, and that's what the infrastructure is to cover the additional improvements that are anticipated at IEC, those will all go into the TIF. And they'd have to default on their property taxes as well, which means the county takes their property. So that's, again, an unlikely scenario. So you have the contract right, you have the property tax right, and then over and above that, and that's all the TIF. And then over and above that, as I mentioned, is a pledge of local income tax, which is not an additional tax, just an existing collection by the county that's available as a third, if you will, a third backstop before there would be a property tax levy.
Can you speak to how common an arrangement this is? I know there's some questions about the separate bodies and what each was doing. Is this a common thing under Indiana law? Yeah,
so redevelopment authority leases, first and foremost, that the statute has been around for a number of years. I don't want to quote from memory how long it's been around, but it's been more than 20 years. It's probably been more than 30 years. The redevelopment authority statute was adopted by the Indiana legislature to allow for this very type of financing, a lease financing. The reason you do that there is for the lease financing is otherwise the redevelopment commission would be looking at a general obligation or a special benefits tax financing. The redevelopment commission doesn't currently have enough debt limit to issue $50 million worth of bonds. So the lease financing is the mechanism under Indiana law, well-held mechanism under Indiana law that allows for this type of financing. A comparable structural finance is you might be familiar with school corporations do building corporation financings with regularity. It's for the same purpose. The school district needs to do larger projects to finance, you know, high schools and the like, and they do them through a lease financing mechanism because they either don't have or can't afford really to use their geo debt limit. So they use a building corporation lease financing. In this case, the redevelopment authority is like the building corporation in that case. The other thing I wanted to mention is that if you look, you will see that many governmental units in Indiana have redevelopment authorities that they've established and that they use with regularity for these types of financings.
Any other questions? Okay, I would like to open up the public meeting.
Now is the public hearing on this resolution. If everyone wishes to speak in the gallery, please approach the podium, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Mike McManus, 51940 Lilac Road. Just so you know, the authority signed its half of the lease earlier this morning. I have challenged the legality of the authority itself. So I don't know if you know that or not, but there is a chance that the authority may be deemed not the authority, and therefore we're going to have to start all this all over again. I don't know what the rush is here. The roads aren't going anywhere. I don't understand if the roads aren't being used for security, then why are we giving the roads to the authority? That's supposed to happen tonight. It hasn't happened yet. So you're going to be signing a lease, accepting property that the authority doesn't have the authority to give to you, whether it's properly constituted or not, because it hasn't been given the property yet. So this whole thing is just a mess. And the facilities that are going to be built out in New Carlisle that normally would be used for the security for any of this, they haven't been built yet. The school bond issue is a poor analogy, I would suggest. School bonds are issued for the building of the school buildings, and that's what the security is. School bonds are limited to building the schools. The roads here don't have anything to do with building of any new business out at in the project area. This isn't limited to the GM plant. The GM plant isn't mentioned in here at all. And also there are certain statements and averments in here that just aren't true. Maybe they are, but I haven't seen what the rental values are going to be, that it's been actually calculated, because it's blank in all the documents here. And one of the documents says that the roads have been found to have been evaluated and are worth X amount of dollars. That just isn't true unless it's somewhere in somebody's file cabinet, because that's not stated in here either. So all of this is unnecessarily rushed. It's a complicated matter. None of the projects are going to be completed for 3 years. Where are you going to get the money to start making repayments on bonds before 27, when the first of the plant you have is going to be completed. It just doesn't make any sense. And frankly, if I own some bonds, if I'm looking for bonds and it's not backed by the roads and it's not backed by the structures out there, thank you. I'm not buying that bond.
Thank you.
Morning, Dan Caruso, 305 Compton Street, New Carlisle. I've got several things that are just bouncing around in the head and I'm just gonna wing it. I sure hope that a default doesn't happen and all of a sudden we're paying tolls to use Cleveland, Timothy, and some of these roads because the county has hawked them and lost them due to bad choices. I just don't understand where the need for this, what we're talking about right now, comes up because it was pushed on the council, on the county council several weeks ago, that they needed to expand the New Carlisle Economic Development Area, almost 1,500 acres, because they needed to have the rights to that land to use it for bonding purposes, for more projects out in the IEC. And then all of a sudden this comes up. Well, I'm sure it's not all of a sudden because there sure seems to be a whole lot of stuff going on behind closed doors, which we tried to get ended several years ago. And apparently it's gotten worse. This whole thing is just so, it seems so unnecessary. And again, I'm so worried that we're going to be paying a toll. We'll have the transponders. Everybody will be required to have a transponder on their windshield. And if they happen to venture on the Cleveland Road, they're going to have a charge to their toll and a money due showing up in their mail. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for being here and for listening to the public. My name is Deborah Durrell, 21677 Otten Road, South Bend. I want to thank Bill, first of all, for this very meaty packet. I do appreciate the fact that he gives a lot of information on these items. And even though it's a lot to digest and a lot of us did not, including me, did not read through the entire packet, I do appreciate the fact that it does help with the transparency that he provides all of that information. That being said, I was able to read through the RDA packet a little bit, and I have not heard a couple of things specifically addressed yet by anyone, and my apologies to Mr. Facenda if he did address this. He mentioned verbally an income tax that's not in writing, but besides the property tax, he did mention an income tax, and I haven't heard that defined. Also, in the document, it talks about a special benefits tax levied upon the district, and I do not see that defined to my understanding either. So these are additional taxes besides the property that we're saying is just not going to happen. I do feel a lot of concern. I feel like this is a little bit like a Jenga game. You know, the final piece, the bottom piece in this is the GM plant, apparently. And we're layering a lot of things on top of that. I do not hear or do not read yet anything about a second owner clause. We've already had issues with materials, with participants and owners in these projects saying they're involved and then they're not involved because of the economy. We've got material resource issues. We've got labor issues, housing issues. A lot of these things are being addressed, but I don't think they are completely resolved. So again, I think this is why I and others feel pretty nervous about hearing about all of this. Thank you.
Charlotte Wolf, 21439 Osborne Road, Lakeville. I too appreciate the information provided and the time and energy expended by this body. We, as the public, are also expending our time and energy just to attend these hearings. We are not busybodies. We are not just tree huggers. We honestly care about the future of this county, and we also care about how the taxes are being allocated and spent. During 2022, we willingly volunteered this time and energy to work many hours on the update of the county comprehensive land use plan. Currently, the county is operating off of a 2002 land use plan. I would far prefer a county government that works with its citizens rather than treating us as adversaries. I begin to think that the shelving of the county comprehensive land use plan update is due to this project and its desire to avoid any updated guidance. That guidance included lots of comments about industrial sprawl, building on farmland or trying not to, lots of different things that were in the update, the public's input on the update. So all of that is now being shelved and ignored. So where is the county comprehensive land use plan? Where is that? I disagree that the public has been adequately notified. The difficulty of attending these hearings on a weekday morning when most people are working reduces the opposition that you hear. There are a lot of people that are opposed that aren't being heard of. One of the things that really bothers me is that the refusal of the county to work with the city to identify more suitable sites for industry. And I don't understand that. I don't claim to. I know that's a complicated issue. But if you located these industrial sites on higher ground, it would not require the massive expenditures for additional infrastructure because it's already there. South Bend job seekers could more easily reach the employment opportunities. This examination of suitable sites would have avoided locating in these high water table areas of farmland. And don't we have GIS tools available? I mean, why are we not using all available tools to decide where industry and sprawl, the accompanying housing, everything else is going to happen? So in my opinion, the process is not allowed for the public participation to be adequate in decision-making. Public notice and comment is not public participation. It's not necessarily even a public hearing. The inadequate notice to nearby residents and the entire county population really disturbs me. Thank you.
Cheryl Nix, 17901 Sable Ridge Drive, Clay Township. I just wanted to make it clear that it isn't just residents of New Carlisle who are concerned about this decision. That does feel a little bit rushed. The RDA seemed to just kind of be aware of of all the details this morning at their meeting. I think that's inadequate. I think when you're talking about leasing roads, people have a right to be concerned. I travel all throughout the county. So the fact that I don't live in Olive Township doesn't mean I don't care about what happens in that township. I'm also thinking that given the industrial development in that township, it seems to me there should be a member on the redevelopment commission from that township. Thank you.
Is there anyone online who'd like to speak?
Looks like Steve and Mary have their hand raised. You want to call
Can we-
one?
Yeah, can we open up Stephen Mary?
Steve, you can provide your comment now.
Thank you, and thank you for having a hearing on this, which we didn't have at the newly constituted redevelopment authority. That may be because you are required by law. I think that should, because you have a principle of open government. We should have had a hearing before the RDA ruled as well. I want to make a point first off that the issue that you decided on last month that had a lot of controversy and people really mad in New Carlisle of extending the EDA, the Economic Development Area in New Carlisle to
Mr.
1,500.
Francis, if I could interrupt you 1 second, could you state your address for the record, please?
Okay, Steve Francis, 54174 Jude Lake Drive, Clay Township.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I hope, well, so anyway, back to the 1,500-acre decision. Let's dispense with the lie that was given that that land was necessary in order to do bonding and then continue work on the GM project and the IEC. It was not. The various county bodies were misinformed about that. The 1,500 acres was not necessary for this project to go forward. And now we're seeing that roads that cross the entire county, Adams Road, Cleveland Road, Timothy Road, are being used as a backstop. Collateral, I don't know whether they're a security interest, but they are being used to show bondholders that there is a firm asset. Usually those assets are within the TIF district or used to enhance the TIF district. So I object as a taxpayer. When I talk to people about it, they think this is a crazy scheme to avoid debt limits and to encumber us further in terms of leasing roads in such a way as an asset for essentially a private development. Second, I got to say something about offering bonds of $50 million at this point at as high as a 7% interest rate. That's $33.5 million a year interest. And as a result, that interest payment is going to eat up almost $50 million over the course of 20 years. So it's not a wise way to go about it. Unfortunately, there's also all kinds of things that could happen in the future. You're rerouting a stream that is a waters of the U.S. issue. It's before the federal bodies now. There will be permitting. Those permits and those decisions can be challenged in court, and maybe that would hold up the project. So there's lots of things that could happen that the worst case scenario does. And I ask you not to encumber taxpayers at this point in time until a lot of these details are worked out and perhaps paid for in another way. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, if you'd like to state your name and address and speak, you're allowed to do so.
Good morning, Mary Countryman, 52959 Timothy Road, New Carlisle, Indiana. Yes, I do live in the area, and yes, this will impact us. First of all, hopefully before I don't run out of time, but I did comment in the meeting chat that the link was not working for everyone in as far as linking or joining the meeting through the agenda link. And I know there were others that wanted to attend and they were having a hard time going directly through the link and putting the information in there to enter the meeting, which is what I had to do because it wouldn't work. And others were having a hard time with that. So I think there were participants that wanted to be here, but weren't able to. I have many questions and concerns on the bond. There's a lot of ifs for $50 million, 7.5%. They're hoping to do better than that. I hope discussions are made or decisions are made as if you were spending or gambling your own money. At the previous meeting this morning, the financial advisor said, we don't anticipate a tax levy. Anticipation isn't a solid guarantee, and taxpayers deserve better, more definite answers other than basically, we don't think and maybe. This is a new project and there hasn't been yet, as stated, there hasn't been a project like this. $50 million is too high of a gamble, especially at an unknown interest rate. Would any of you risk your own money or property on a deal like this? There are too many unanswered questions. And I'm sure GM has a bigger lawyer than St. Joe County that will enable them to get out of any kind of money owed to St. Joe County. $50 million is a big gamble for such a new technology as an EV plant. As the saying goes, you can't get blood out of a turnip. I'm sure GM has a way of getting out of this. So many, myself included, spent hundreds of hours on the county comprehensive plan. If this gets pushed through, it will affirm the doubts of hundreds of us living in the area of New Carlisle that our participation in the comprehensive plan was only to pacify us, and it is only being held up, the comprehensive plan that is, so all of this can be pushed through. It would show such a disrespect to all of the people that spent hundreds of hours on this comprehensive plan if this gets pushed through without the comprehensive plan being approved first. Thank you.
Bob, you're next.
Hello, Bob Humbarger at 29987 Herd Road in Olive Township. No, I'm opposed to this development authority. I just want to say historically that this body has never listened to anything that the speakers have ever said. And I know that I'm not being listened to on this thing. You're gonna go ahead and vote it through. And if you want to know why people don't participate in county government, it's because the lack of transparency and it's unconscionable, and I'm opposed. And thanks. Bye.
We see one last hand, P. Tillage.
Yes, my name is Patricia Tillich, own property at 57920 Timothy Road. I don't understand why only certain roads are tied to this lease when the GM plant affects the entire community of New Carlisle and St. Joe County. I also don't understand how a lease can be tied to specific roads. It doesn't correlate to the example of the school building, to the school building new schools. It's not like you can repossess a road. And it scares me what is happening to the quaint little town of New Carlisle. The intersection of Larison Road and State Road 2 is already a nightmare and scary to drive through that intersection with semis coming in and out of that area. And you are building a large manufacturing plant there, and it is only going to become a more dangerous area. And that doesn't really tie to the lease, but I still don't understand. I agree with the other women and gentlemen who have spoken about $50 million is a large gamble at the best of 7.5%. And I thank you for your time.
Would anyone else like to speak? Hearing and seeing none, then we'd close the public meeting portion. Excuse me.
If there's any discussion by the commission on the resolution, if not, a motion would be appropriate.
Okay. Question. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve resolution 2023-22?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Garrett?
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Lane, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Goble?
Aye.
Mr. Horvath?
Aye.
Mr. File?
Aye.
And Mr. Jordan?
Yes.
Motion carried.
We have no agenda items in any of the other development areas at this time, but we do have one item under additional business. Is Abby here?
Good morning, Abby Wiles, APC Director. In front of you today is a proposal for a residential market analysis for the western part of St. Joseph County, including 4 townships. As the IEC develops and there is economic growth in the western part of the county, there's a need for additional housing units to accommodate the growth. Staff solicited proposals from Land Use USA, a second firm, and then solicited a proposal from a third firm, but didn't hear back. The consultant in this, as outlined in the proposal, will look at baseline data as it currently exists, but then we'll also study data available from prospective employers in the IEC area to give us what the residential market demand would be. The report will break down housing data by tenure, building size, building format, price, and target market. We're asking for your consideration and approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Abby, I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit here.
All right.
'cause My own curiosity. It's a little off topic. Do we have an idea when the comprehensive zoning plan is gonna come?
Sure. So we do have an update that we're getting ready to send out to everyone that is on the email list. The draft was delivered to staff over the summer. It's taken several months to get through the draft. We had a great opportunity that people referenced earlier, that a number of residents participated in working groups. We had 8 of those working groups. A lot of the working groups developed content that was similar in nature. So it's really taken a long time for staff to work with the consultant to make sure that the content throughout the plan is going in the best section, eliminate redundancies, and ensure that the plan reads in a consistent voice. That's what's been taking a long time. So the consultant now is working on restructuring the plan to be more streamlined and then incorporating staff's edits. We are targeting public engagement to begin again in the first quarter of 2024.
Okay, and then this is gonna kind of feed into that or should parallel it in some way. Is that?
So the comprehensive plan gave a very high overview of the residential conditions in St. Joe County, but this will dig deeper than the comprehensive plan ever could. This will look at the 4 townships outlined, and it will be a deep dive in terms of the existing data, and it will model data for prospective employers to really understand what the residential market need is in those 4 townships. The comprehensive plan can't do that. It's a high level document and it can give you a snapshot of what housing is for the county, but nothing like what is being proposed in the proposal from Land Use USA.
Then I have one more. So to kind of help manage expectations of what this plan, this study and the comprehensive plan will accomplish is still basically a guideline, a recommendation that if land use is deemed to be used in other ways, it's still that the landowners still have those opportunities to work outside of those. They're not dictates, they're not firm requirements. They are kind of, it's a guideline.
The comprehensive plan is a policy document that you have to give consideration to when you're making land use decisions. It's not an ordinance. It's not like our zoning or subdivision ordinance that has to be followed when you're developing land.
Are there any other questions from Ms. Wiles? Is there a motion to approve the Land Use USA market analysis proposal?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Goble?
Aye.
Mr. Horvath?
Aye.
Mr. File?
Aye.
And Mr. Jordan?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
We're now moving on to the public comment section. If anyone else would like to come up, again, you're limited to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address. Seeing no one come forward. Yes. Yes.
Again, as I understand it, when
Sir, state your name and address.
again, I'm still Mike McManus and I still live at 51940 Lilac Road. That has not changed in the past half hour or so, but thank you. As I understand it, bonds are essentially a loan to the person who's issuing the bonds, to put this in the most simplistic way. And then as someone who purchases one of those bonds, I expect a return. And usually there are 2 annual payments spread out over time. I the bonds haven't been issued, so those payments haven't been made. But if the roads aren't being used as security and the bonds are issued, then you have no security. We don't have any businesses out there in the development area yet. So we're going to have to go right to the TIF money that we already have, and we're going to be in a hole before bonds, if anybody buys them, start generating anything. So again, this is just, I know you've already passed it. It's a very, very poor financial decision. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you again, Deborah Doral, 21677 Naughton Road. I made comments regarding the roads lease and the bonds earlier. Right now, I want to speak about verbal assurances. I can count 3 verbal assurances that we have heard in the last year or so. I want to raise the issue that the public and also decision makers need to push for some of these assurances to be put in writing. I think all of us know that a handshake doesn't really work anymore. And if anyone wants to talk to me about which 3 big verbal assurances we were given that were changed without hardly any notice, one of those is recently, and this specifically affects the RDC, is the ethanol plant spill into the Dixon Ditch and the West Place Ditch. It has taken quite a bit of work on my part to access the IDEM report on that, and I don't have all the information. But I think when the ethanol plant was approved, there were a lot of good questions by all of the voting bodies on what they were going to be doing with their plant safety. And we were assured verbally over and over and over again that this was an upgraded, modern, highly quality plant. And the IDEM violations so far have put in writing that what they said does not actually represent what they were doing in the facility. So I don't have all the information yet, but I think this is something that a lot of the public is very concerned about with industry, that we need to hold them accountable. Thank you. Proactively.
Hi, Charlotte Wolf, 21439 Osborne Road, Lakeville. And just getting back to the county comprehensive land use plan update, if that process has not been able to move forward because of, various reports and things needing to be completed, why does not the county and the redevelopment commission offer more resources to the planning department so that they can update the plan and so that this project can fall within that plan? Thank you.
I would like to note that the redevelopment commission 2 or 3 meetings ago offered an additional $90,000 to the planning staff to finish their comprehensive plan, the county's comprehensive plan, not the area plan commission's comprehensive plan. So I would like that noted for the record.
I think those are the same hands up that were there for the public meeting.
No, I'd like to speak.
Okay, sure, absolutely, sir.
Steve Francis, Jude Lake Drive, Clay Township. Yeah, I would like to request, I think that this study is premature, be placed on hold and tabled. And I'd like to use my comments really to go over some history, because some of you are very new to this commission, even though you may know the history. But the comprehensive land use plan from 2001 or 2002 is now 22 years old. It's used all throughout the planning process and in ordinances to justify rezonings and such, as you know. We requested back when the IEC was proposed in 2020 and when Ms. Wiles came on board, that the county land use plan, the comprehensive plan, be updated then. That was over 3 years ago. 1 year ago, 2 years after our requests, And after the IEC was established, the working groups were formed. We were told to trust the process. We were told that citizens would be involved throughout the process. The working groups were a good start. They occurred last fall. From last fall to now, those of us involved in the working groups, and I spent at least many dozens of hours in working groups and researching and participating, have not received any notice whatsoever. So it's natural to assume that this process was held up to allow a lot of these changes to occur, and then to be told, well, those are in place. I think this market study is premature. I think we need to see what the housing working group and the plan has in terms of housing in this county, which is needed, no question. And then a market study should be done after that comprehensive plan is finished next year, if it indeed will be. So I challenge the assumption that, oh, the staff needed time, 6 months to do what? Basically do editing and rearranging of the comprehensive plan before a draft is sent out to those of us who are participated. This is an insult to those of us who have participated to hear that excuse. And I feel like that has to be stated publicly, that you should delay this. I request that you delay this so that the plan is completed before moving forward on items that some items cannot be undone. And have been, as the ABZA will be doing on Wednesday, making decisions. So you are participating in a sham process on this comprehensive land use plan, as well as proceeding with the IEC matters. Thank you.
Mr. Humbarger or Mary, would you like to speak in the public forum?
Yes, I would, please. Mary Countryman, 52959 Timothy Road, New Carlisle, Indiana. I have a question. Our internet was cutting out again. What was the areas listed for the land market analysis that Abby was speaking of? What were there areas listed in that, or counties or townships, or what was the area for that? Areas. Hello?
Yes.
Olive, Warren, Green, and German townships.
Olive, Warren, and what was it?
Green and German townships.
Green and German. Thank you very much. Yeah, there is definitely a need for housing, I would think, but is this a market analysis for housing, or is this a market analysis of what you're going to be paying for the county taking more land or wanting to buy more land? I'm unclear on that too.
It's an analysis to see what the market would stand.
What the what? What the market would what?
Yeah. What people would be able to purchase based on incomes. It's
So the county, so it's what the county could pay more people to take their land? Is that it? If the people were to sell it, is that what we're saying here?
Ms. Countryman, I'm sure Abby Wiles would be more than happy to walk you through the scope and nature of the study.
I just thought it'd be nice to have it on public record for all of us to hear the same thing. Thank you.
This is Bob Humbarger, 29987 Herd Road, Olive Township. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I just want to make a statement that the redevelopment commission and the county commissioners have already torn down more than 12 houses in the IEC area. I don't object to studying housing needs, but a lot of this is caused by the redevelopment authority. Thank you. Bye.
Would anyone else like to speak? Seeing none. we'd close that section of the agenda. Is there a motion to? adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Goble?
Aye.
Mr. Horvath?
Aye.
Mr. File?
Aye.
Mr. Jordan?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
We'd ask that you